Buster Blader is one of those Yu-Gi-Oh cards that feels like it was created after someone got tired of Kaiba talking. That is basically the whole energy of the card. Somewhere in the world of Duel monsters, while Seto Kaiba was building his entire personality around the Blue Eyes White Dragon, someone looked at the situation and said, fine, here is a man whose entire job is to ruin dragon owners emotionally. As a card, Buster Blader is very simple. He is a level 7 warrior with 2600 attack points and 2300 defense points, which already puts him in that old-school Yu-Gi-Oh category of monsters that are treated like legendary weapons of war, even though they still lose to a slightly larger lizard. His effect is the real point. He gains 500 attack points for every dragon monster your opponent controls or has in the graveyard. That means Buster Blader is not just strong. He is personally offended by dragons. He does not enter the duel as a neutral monster. He enters like he read the opponent's deck list and found it disrespectful. That is what makes him such a perfect card for duel monsters. Early Yu-Gi-Oh is full of monsters that are more about identity than clean strategy. Dark Magician is not just Yugi's ace because he has 2500 attack points. He is Yugi's ace because he feels like Yugi's card. Blue Eyes is not just Kaiba's monster because it has 3000 attack points. It is Kaiba's entire self-image with wings. Red Eyes is Joey's card because it looks cool, has potential, and often requires the viewer to politely ignore its actual win rate. Buster Blader fits into that same world because he has one extremely clear idea behind him. Dragons are powerful, dragons are proud, dragons are everywhere, and this man has made it his life's work to be a problem. The funny part is that Buster Blader sounds like a side character until the exact moment he matters. In a normal duel, he is a 2600 attack monster, which is respectable but not insane. He is strong enough to be taken seriously, but not strong enough to walk into the room and automatically end the conversation. Against dragons, though, he becomes something else. Suddenly, the opponent's greatest strength becomes evidence against them. Every dragon they summon, every dragon that hits the graveyard, every big dramatic monster they built their deck around just turns into more fuel for the guy standing there with the oversized sword. That is very Yu-Gi-Oh! The show loves the idea that a card is not just powerful on its own, but powerful because of the story happening around it. Buster Blader is not the biggest monster in the game. He is the answer to someone else's biggest monster. He exists for the moment where the opponent thinks they have reached the top of the mountain, only to find out Yugi packed a very specific mountain removal tool. And because this is duel monsters, the emotional target is obvious. Buster Blader is basically Anti-Kaiba technology. Kaiba spends half the series acting like dragons were invented for him personally. His Blue Eyes White Dragon is not just rare, it is treated like the card equivalent of royal blood. He owns 3 of them, destroys the 4th so nobody else can have it, and somehow the show expects us to move on from that like it was just a quirky business decision. So when a card like Buster Blader exists, it feels less like deck building and more like the universe correcting an imbalance. There is something very satisfying about that. Kaiba's whole thing is overwhelming force. He does not want to beat you politely. He wants to summon something huge, explain why it is superior, and stare at you like your life choices led to this humiliation. Buster Blader turns that against him. The more Kaiba leans into dragons, the more dangerous Buster Blader becomes. It is the rare card that makes arrogance mathematically unsafe. Buster Blader also has one of the strongest visual identities among Yugi's monsters. He does not look mystical like Dark Magician, or cute and weird like Kuribo, or ancient and dramatic like the Egyptian god cards. He looks like a man who has been walking through caves for years asking every dragon if they have a minute. The armor, the huge sword, the heavy stance, everything about him says he was designed for one job and has no hobbies outside of it. He is not smiling, he is not flamboyant, he is not giving speeches. He is just waiting for a dragon to make a mistake. That seriousness is part of the comedy. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of monsters that look absurd when you stop and think about them. A magician in purple robes, a little brown furball, a dragon with 2 mouths, a gambling clown, a fish with legal authority probably. Buster Blader, compared to all that, looks strangely practical. The man has a sword. He kills dragons. That is the business model. In a show where half the cards feel like they were designed during a fever dream, Buster Blader is almost too straightforward. But that simplicity is why he works. You understand him instantly. You do not need a long explanation. He gets stronger when facing dragons. That is it. The opponent has dragons, he becomes scarier. The opponent does not have dragons, he is still a large armored man holding a blade the size of a street sign. Either way, not ideal. In Yugi's deck, Buster Blader also helps show how strange and flexible Yugi's card pool really is. Yugi is remembered for Dark Magician, but his deck is basically a museum of situational violence. He has spellcasters, warriors, magnet monsters, gadgets, trap cards, tiny emotional support monsters, and at least one card that feels like it was included specifically to annoy Kaiba. Buster Blader fits that perfectly. He is not Yugi's main symbol, but he is one of the cards that shows why Yugi is so hard to beat. His deck always seems to have something for the exact nightmare in front of him. Of course, this is also where the old anime logic comes in. In real card terms, Buster Blader is useful in the right matchup. In the anime, he feels like destiny in armor. If dragons are involved, the card suddenly carries the weight of prophecy. The music rises, the camera treats the sword like it has a legal claim to the duel, and everyone reacts as if Yugi has just revealed the ancient counter to Kaiba's childhood trauma, which, to be fair, he basically has. The best extension of Buster Blader's identity is Dark Paladin. the fusion between Dark Magician and Buster Blader. That card is almost too perfect as an idea. It combines Yugi's most iconic monster with the monster designed to punish dragons. Against Kaiba, that fusion feels like Yugi taking his own identity and turning it directly toward Kaiba's greatest obsession. Dark Magician brings the Yugi side of the equation. Buster Blader brings the anti-dragon hatred. Together they create a monster that looks like it was invented just to make Blue Eyes owners uncomfortable. And again, that is why Buster Blader matters. He is not just a strong monster, he is a counter-argument. Blue Eyes says dragons are the peak of power. Buster Blader says that is adorable, please continue filling the graveyard. Kaiba treats dragons like status symbols. Buster Blader treats them like unpaid invoices. Every dragon that appears gives him more reason to get worse for the opponent. There is also something quietly brutal about the card's effect. A lot of monsters punish what is on the field. Buster Blader also cares about what has already died. That means the duel does not reset emotionally after a dragon is destroyed. The graveyard becomes part of his strength. Every fallen dragon still counts. In the world of Yu-Gi-Oh!, where the graveyard is basically a waiting room with dramatic lighting, that makes him even more dangerous. Your dragons are not gone, they are now evidence. This gives Buster Blader a different kind of menace from other Yugi monsters. Dark Magician feels loyal, Summon Skull feels aggressive, Black Luster Soldier feels ceremonial, Buster Blader feels specialized. He is the kind of card that does not need to dominate every duel because when his moment arrives, the whole duel bends around him. He is not the face of the deck. He is the card waiting in the back for one very specific enemy type to get too comfortable. That also makes him a very funny contrast to the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Treats dragons in general. Dragons are supposed to be majestic, ancient, terrifying, and unbeatable. Every time one appears, the show acts like gravity has changed. Players scream, attack names, the crowd panics, and someone usually explains the attack points like the audience cannot read the giant number on the screen. Buster Blader walks into that atmosphere and reduces the whole thing to a matchup problem. The dragon may be legendary, but unfortunately this man has experience. He is also one of those cards that reminds you how personal dueling is in the original series. Nobody just plays cards because they are efficient. They play cards because the cards say something about them. Kaiba uses Blue Eyes because he wants to be untouchable. Joey uses Red Eyes because he believes in potential, even when the card is making that belief difficult. Yugi uses Dark Magician because it carries loyalty, mystery, and a connection to the past. Buster Blader says something different. It says Yugi is prepared. He is not just relying on heart and friendship and whatever Kurobo is doing that week. He has answers. Some of those answers are dressed like medieval revenge. And that is the real appeal of the card. Buster Blader is cool because he turns the opponent's fantasy against them. If your fantasy is dragons, power, size, and superiority, he is the correction. He does not need to be the most famous monster in the deck. He does not need to be the emotional center of the story. He just needs the opponent to say the word dragon too many times. For duel monsters, that is enough. In a series where a duel can decide a friendship, a tournament, a soul, a company, an ancient prophecy, or a custody argument with holograms, Buster Blader is refreshingly direct. He sees dragons, he gains attack, he swings sword. Somehow in this universe, that makes him one of the more reasonable people involved. Buster Blader may not have the same iconic status as Dark Magician or Blue Eyes White Dragon, but he has something just as valuable, a clear purpose. He is the card that proves even the biggest monsters can be made vulnerable if the right answer is waiting for them. He is not the king of Yugi's deck, but he is the card you remember when the opponent starts getting too proud of their dragons. And in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that is basically a public service.